Did you see that?
Morty, its butt is in the front.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Rick and Morty Season 8, Episode 4 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references, some big cameos, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the episodes. The episode title was The Last Temptation of Jerry, which is a reference to The Last Temptation of Christ, a Martin Scorsese movie where Willem Dafoe plays Jesus Christ. Also meant to foreshadow a lot of the religious mythology backstory of the episode, which is a little bit like a Prometheus meets the Easter holiday kind of episode. There were so many Prometheus jokes. It just feels like somebody in the writer's room, maybe Dan Harmon, just absolutely hated the Prometheus movie. The really big surprise guest star of this episode was Eben Moss-Bachrach, who plays the lead Christ Trooper. Most of you recognize him as The Thing during the new Fantastic Four movie, the new version of Ben Grimm in the Marvel Universe, but I think they recorded this episode with him before he'd been cast as The Thing or before he'd filmed the Fantastic Four movie, so there weren't really any Fantastic Four references to speak of or Marvel references during the episode in general. He's been on a bunch of other stuff, like he was on Andor Season 1, he was Micro on the Punisher Netflix series, John Bernthal just came back during Daredevil Born Again Season 1. And a lot of you also probably recognize him from The Bear on FX, which is a fantastic show. Nothing to do with Marvel or DC or comic book related or anything like that, just a really awesome show. But the episode mostly plays out as a parody of the Easter holiday and Prometheus. It's the first time this season that Jerry is in an episode, revealing that Jerry is a huge fan of Easter, but he's been a fan of Christmas before, and it just seems like he loves all major holidays, which they pay off at the end of the episode when the entire family spends an entire calendar year going around destroying each different holiday. So I guess at the end of the episode, Jerry now hates all holidays, which is also kind of funny because Rick and Morty has done many different holiday-themed episodes, like Thanksgiving episodes, Christmas episodes, a bunch of different ones. We find out that Morty is now streaming regularly on Twitch, like he has his Twitch channel. I don't know what his actual Twitch handle is. Maybe they'll actually reveal that in an Easter egg in the background in some future episode. And he's currently playing Fortnite. The joke about them just adding JFK and his signature gun being an American flag-themed hammer is actually mostly them just clowning on Fortnite in general. Fortnite does stuff like that all the time. That isn't even that weird for Fortnite. They also just added the David Cornswet Superman from the upcoming Superman movie to Fortnite in real life. They also added Rick and Morty to Fortnite a long time ago, so you could also look at it as a callback to that, like them referencing themselves being in Fortnite already. They set up Summer's side plot with her being trapped in spring break for an entire year. Apparently Jellybean is also a slur now. Not sure what that's supposed to mean, why that's derogatory. You can let me know in the comments what you think Jellybean is supposed to mean now. Nobody mentioned Jellybean in real life though to anybody. Don't want to commit any hate crimes there. Beth is watching interdimensional cable. Notice the crystals on the cable box are lit up. This looks like a parody of The Bachelorette, just some other universe version of The Bachelorette. The whole thing with the egg farts is just a normal thing. Like, you eat a lot of eggs, you're going to get a lot of farts. Because it's Easter, they make a lot of egg-based references. R.I.P. to whichever liquid creature that Rick is pouring down the drain. They never reference it again. Notice in the background when they're eating too, all the decorations look like a little kid made them because Jerry has the skill level of a little kid. They make a joke about how most major holidays are just commercial tools corporations use to sell more things. The Simpsons did a huge parody of this way back in the day with their Love Day episode. Nobody remembers the real origin of holidays. They only remember that you buy gifts, spend a lot of money, eat a lot of candy, which they also follow up at the end of the episode saying that they should never learn the true origin of holidays because they'll be super messed up like the origins of Easter now in the Rick and Morty universe. You could also look at that as another joke, like one of the many jokes of them clowning on Prometheus, saying that there are backstory that we did not need to know. Like the whole idea that Prometheus revealed a bunch of backstory that people were upset to learn about. Like, wait a minute, the engineers created humanity? We didn't need to know that. That wasn't useful for the Alien franchise. The Prometheus movie was disappointing for a number of reasons. Jerry making the joke about being a good dad, meaning he has to go straight up the middle now, I think is just a reference to him being sensitive to all things or anything that a kid could possibly do or any way they could change their belief system or want to change their body, like any gender or political related issue. Like, if I want to be a good dad, I just got to be cool with anything and everything that you come up with. None of the rest of the family cares about Easter, leaving him to go to the store by himself, winds up running over the unthawed Easter bunny creature from the Alps, the ancient Easter bunny, throwing up in his mouth because he ate too much candy, which they also use some follow-up bits for. Like, did you try and kill him because of all the vomit in his mouth? To be fair to Jerry, the car crash was enough to kill him. Like, his body was mush before that. He was definitely going to die no matter what. They do the standard intro with the same scenes as before. I already broke down all these new scenes from Season 8 down in my Episode 2 video, so if you want to hear more about the new scenes in the intro, just watch my Episode 2 video. Jerry takes the corpse back to the house, and Rick confirms that this is the actual Easter bunny. He's real in this universe, but they obviously use it for like a much bigger mythology backstory with the Prometheus jokes. You notice the rest of the family continually clowns on him. They do this all the time. Like, Beth is hardcore herself, not just Summer. Like, they are really mean to Jerry. Rick connecting the Easter Bunny's origin to Germany in the 13th century is setting up the whole mythology for later in the episode. The idea that this used to be a 13th century monk or religious figure that was transformed into a human-like Easter Bunny that was then frozen in the Alps, unfrozen because of global warming, and then was hit by Jerry. And now Jerry, because of the Easter Claus, big Santa Claus reference, now has to become the next Easter Bunny. That's why Jerry starts loving the lettuce, the other greens, the drinking water like a rabbit, setting up the whole bit where they make the Tim Allen Santa Claus movie jokes. Like, Morty literally calls it out. He even calls the logic of the bit out, saying that it's wrong, which I think is the writers clowning on themselves for writing a bad joke. Like, this joke doesn't make sense. If you have not seen the Tim Allen Santa Claus movies in a long time, the whole bit is that he accidentally kills Santa Claus, and the clause in the Santa Claus name, like the clause of the contract, is that he has to become the next Santa Claus.
You're the new Santa. I am not Santa Claus.
So they find that Jerry is going to turn into full Easter Bunny form by the time the actual Easter holiday happens in the next 2 days, giving them their ticking clock for the episode. Rick traps Jerry in a crystal to slow his transformation, and the Dan Brown reference is to the Da Vinci Code, which they turned into a movie series with Tom Hanks. That movie reveals some secrets about the origin of Jesus Christ, the idea that he was a real person with a real family, had a child, and in present day, one of the other characters of the movie finds out that she is literally the biological descendant of the actual Jesus Christ. This is meant to flow a little bit with the combo Prometheus backstory Easter egg for like the true origin of the Easter Bunny in the Easter holiday. And the idea in the Prometheus movie where they get into the true origin of the alien xenomorph species and the origin of the actual human race. Rick also seems like he loves the concept of spring break just in general because of all the partying, helps Summer by encouraging her debauchery, and gives her a second fake stomach so she can drink extra booze, but also winds up saving her life because she's trapped in spring break for a year, but the second stomach winds up helping her survive that whole time. So did Rick know that she was going to need that second stomach to survive, or was it just a coincidence? Then he makes the Indiana Jones reference, setting up the whole map transition bit when they go to the French Alps, leaving Beth and Jerry teamed up. The map transitions, like I said, Indiana Jones bit, except they add the portal animations because the whole joke is that the portal just sends them directly across time and space. They don't actually need to fly across the map like Indiana Jones normally does. They make a great David Zaslav burn. The whole joke here is the writers not wanting to support any causes that David Zaslav might hate because Warner Brothers, which technically owns Rick and Morty, is controlled by David Zaslav right now, so theoretically if he wanted to, he could fire any of the writers that he wants. So none of them want to get fired by him. They would want to call him out, but also say, hey, please don't fire us at the same time. All the chaos, the bad things that have been happening at Warner Brothers from the top down, like every bad decision, every canceled show, every canceled movie, getting Batgirled, all this crazy stuff, really like the bad guy that you can point to in all this, like the grand villain is David Zaslav. So that's why you see so many David Zaslav jokes in a lot of TV shows and movies right now. Everybody is both worried about getting Batgirled, but also wants to call him out. They discover the spot where the ancient Easter Bunny unfroze in the Alps, blaming global warming. The Iceman Timothy Hutton joke is a movie where his character in the 80s finds a Neanderthal frozen in ice during an Arctic expedition, and during that movie, they unthaw him and he starts learning about what's happened. It's also a bit of a joke about how the older Hollywood writers that write on Rick and Morty, like Dan Harmon, being an older writer, being sentimental for the 80s, when most of the younger kids now that watch the show, like Gen Z, Zoomers, even younger kids, are more nostalgic for their childhoods in the early to mid 2000s. So it's Morty just reminding Rick that his references are starting to become outdated. He also makes the Encino Man reference. If you have not seen it, it is classic Brendan Fraser. I would recommend checking it out. It is a deep cut. Also makes the meta joke about how it's inappropriate now to shame someone because of their sexual preferences. Also feels like a follow-up to Summer's note earlier in the episode about the new type of slur that he shouldn't say. Generally just the show calling out PC culture, like politically correct culture, which TV shows and movies do all the time anyway. Another big deep cut here, the Wicker Man reference feels like to the Nicolas Cage movie, which itself was a remake of an older movie, but in the movie, a religious cult burns him alive in a giant wicker man as a sacrifice. Here, all the townspeople burn the wicker sacrificial figures. All because it seems like their town just generally knows about the true origins of Easter being that bunny-like creature that they should all destroy. Like nobody wants the bunny creature because it will lead to the extinction of the human race.
It's a big Easter egg!
They continue the Dan Brown Da Vinci Code bit where Rick learns the pieces of the giant Easter egg that was sent to Earth to basically take it over as part of this takeover plot was hidden in the town seemingly from the Andromeda Galaxy, where that egg came from, where the engineers' race came from. All the space Christians being in conflict of interest also feels like a joke about how the Christian Bible interprets the origin of the universe and the existence of aliens because they are literally aliens who are Christians. Some religions in real life do have some more sci-fi elements to them, like Scientology, for instance, which does involve aliens. Rick's twin energy lace blades that come out of his wrist feel like a follow-up to Space Beth having a version of these. Hers were kind of a Protoss StarCraft reference. I guess you could think of his as being a similar type of reference. The Christ Troopers cross guns also feel like a reference to Constantine's Holy Shotgun from the Keanu Reeves movies. Their Holy Order has their own spaceships, their fleet advanced tech. They pay off the bit with the music that was playing during their fight scene, revealing that this other Christ Trooper guy was actually playing the music that we were listening to during the episode. I wouldn't call that a fourth wall break. There are a lot of meta moments like that in the episode where they reference specific tropes of jokes in the logic of jokes, where it's not quite a fourth wall break, but it is them calling out a lot of tropes of TV shows. They reveal they plan to eliminate Easter by destroying all the eggs back in the Andromeda Galaxy except the one that Jerry's connected to, plan to trap and kill him, ending the cycle of Easter forever. But the big twist is that they're actually a good race trying to stop the engineers from taking over the entire universe. Jerry then transforms enough to break his containment, gets horny like a rabbit, setting up the whole bit where he starts the overpopulation cycle, basically the backdoor way, metaphorical and literal backdoor way, that the engineers take over other planets, slyly conquering other races by causing them to overpopulate and basically kill themselves off. The little papyrus font also feels like an Avatar movie joke. They do the Indiana Jones map bit again, but across the universe this time to the Andromeda Galaxy, where the engineers' race originally comes from. Looking at the rest of the map, there are a bunch of other Easter eggs here. Talk about Easter eggs, this is an Easter egg themed episode, so very apropos. Gigante feels like a big black hole reference. Maybe that's a Christopher Nolan Interstellar reference. There's a giant Cthulhu monster roaming the space between galaxies. Better watch out for that. Maybe they'll pay that off in the future again at some point, but I think it's meant to be the Cthulhu from all the different intros that we always see every single episode in Rick and Morty back to the very first season. Maybe we'll get an episode at some point that will focus on the Cthulhu monster. They're probably saving that for like the very end of the series, and the show was just renewed for another 2 seasons, so now it's 12 seasons total. They travel to what seems like the ruins of the ancient society of engineers that the bunny creatures actually come from. H.R. Geiger, most of you know, is the person who did the concept art for the Alien series, but he was a famous artist before that. All of his art had this same vibe to it, like very creepy, very sexual. The whole thing with Coachella just feels like the horny on main part where like everybody does it with each other, all the wild colors, the celebration themes of the Easter holiday itself. The mural depicts the mythology, the spirit of the Easter creature infuses the containment eggs, is sent to another planet where someone eventually kills that, then is forced to turn into the bunny creature, causing the rest of their race, whichever planet it is, to screw and overpopulate till they kill themselves off, allowing the engineers to then swoop in and just do whatever they want to with the planet. Really sly way of taking over other races, causing them to kill themselves through screwing. Sex-based terraforming.
Morty, its butt is in the front.
They start to veer into much more obvious Prometheus references with the white golem creatures, the star maps, all from the Prometheus movie, the engineers race, obviously. Just as the Holy Order shows up to kill the engineers, they tie the Easter Island statues then that they've actually seen to these giant alien spaceships. That's also a Prometheus joke where Ridley Scott revealed the alien universe the engineers created humanity on purpose. Also because of the whole theme of Easter tying this episode together, like, Easter Island, we should go to Easter Island. Jerry's whole transformation, making him weirdly good at line dancing now, feels like a Ben Affleck Accountant 2 joke where he's autistic in those movies, but his autism makes him weirdly good at line dancing for some reason. Jerry's new ability causes the random people to start getting it on all over the place. This is part of the engineer's way of conquering planets, getting the local populace to kill themselves through overpopulation. He even causes one of the dudes to try and get it on with the motorcycle. Rick and Morty make it to Easter Island, and then Eben Moss Bacharach's lead Christ Trooper character shows up, explains his origin story. He's a general named Reinhard Kincaid. He's the person in the post-credits scene, too, that tries to go back to his wife. His species hating sex feels like the other side of the joke to the engineers' population trick overbreeding races to kill themselves. Then the bit about the real Jesus Christ being a member of their alien race who was sent to Earth to kill the ancient Easter bunny that we saw Jerry accidentally kill until he was crucified is also a Prometheus joke. All because of Ridley Scott trying to say that the origin of the human race was really the engineers. Like, no, it wasn't evolution, it was the engineers that did it. Jerry finishes transforming the rest of the way into the Easter Bunny, kills the Christ Troopers except for the leader because of the post-credit scene, gotta leave him alive for that, then goes around the planet causing everybody to get it on. The whole bit about Beth and him getting it on and him being horrified with his appearance also feels like a bit of The Fly. Amazing movie, classic David Cronenberg. You absolutely have to watch it if you have not seen it yet. Beth then MacGyvering a solution is also meant to be a reminder that even though she's the Beth that chose to stay at home, she's also just as smart and capable as Space Beth, and they together are just as smart and capable as Rick himself. Rick makes the literal Prometheus reference, like they literally call it out. This little bloody cross shape behind them also reminds me of Evangelion, where they kill one of the angels, it always explodes into a cross shape. They have the longer bit about the leader not dying despite being ripped in half. That also feels like a callback to Aliens with Bishop being capable despite the fact that he gets ripped in half during that movie. The reason Rick wants to delete all the ring cams at the house are because they record all the footage around the house, and he doesn't want to have all the footage of the neighbors humping in the street, even though Rick is a confirmed pervert. Notice in the background, though, the postman, for at least a little while in the episode, seems weirdly immune for some reason. Like, up to a point, he's the only one that's not screaming, not until Jerry goes really overboard with his ability. They pay off Morty's mini arc with him trying to do a science, earlier as he called it, like, hey, I'm trying to do a science, by mentioning Rat Utopia. So the Rat Utopia is a real-life behavioral experiment aiming for population explosion in an enclosed utopian space that contains infinite resources, water, food, everything that the rats would need in their offspring to survive. And usually what winds up happening is a dramatic negative behavioral change in the population, like a giant behavioral sink, as they call it, like the rat societies always collapse. Rick pays off the joke from earlier when he was obsessed about the engineers' butts being in front, wondering if their dongs were in back, saying, hey, they have them in back, they are in back. And they start passing the bunny energy between the different family members. The pile of humping people also feels like a callback to that South Park Gooback episode where they literally try to jump into a pile and hump each other.
Okay, sorry, my bad. Everyone back in the pile.
Back in the pile, everyone! We're going back to the pile.
Jump in!
Come on, everybody!
Then the bunny energy corrupting the butt guy engineer is also another Prometheus reference at the end of that movie when the facehugger attaches to one of the engineers, creating the more modern-looking xenomorph creature. The Christ Trooper leader taking the stone ship despite being cut in half also feels like a reference to the ending of Prometheus, where they take the spaceship and try to go back to the engineer's home planet. They do that ending montage with the funny gibberish references to them destroying all things Easter all over town, then every other holiday for an entire calendar year. And if you listen to the actual words of the song that's being sung over all this montage, it just descends into nonsense references. Like it makes a Burger King do-it-your-way reference, Big Mac, McDonald's. They start eating pizza on Thanksgiving because it normally would be turkey, then burning the Christmas decorations until they remember that it has been an entire calendar year, which also doesn't feel like a total fourth wall break just because they call out bits all the time. It's not necessarily a fourth wall break. But also setting up Summer's post-apocalyptic wasteland of spring break that she's been trapped in for an entire year. Notice one of the guards in the background is wearing a giant monster cat helmet. Love Summer's tragic backstory about her lover that died because she didn't have a second stomach and the teeth to remember her by. And the ends by just continuing the party with more and more like it descends, all until Rick comes to rescue her at some point before the next episode. If you've never been on like a college spring break, that's kind of what spring break feels like by the end of spring break. Like it starts out being a party, everybody's happy, but by the end of the week, it starts to feel like this post-apocalyptic wasteland. During the post-credits, they pay off the bit with the leader, Christ Trooper, going back to his wife with the whole bit about him loving sex now, but it having been 20 years that he went on his crusade, that he's been away from home, and now she wants nothing to do with him, and he generally just regrets all the decisions he's ever made his entire life, like it just becomes this giant tragedy. Maybe if he's lucky, he will eventually just bleed out, and that'll be the end of his story. But if there's any Easter eggs or references that you spotted that I didn't talk about during the video, just write them below in the comments, and my full episode 5 video will post next week after they release it. There are a lot of real big movies that are coming out in the next couple months, so just expect a bunch of big trailers for everything in the next couple weeks. Couple big shows also starting in the next couple weeks too that I'll do videos for. Everybody click here for my brand new Superman trailer video, and click here for all my other Rick and Morty episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.